access to it later. Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So excited again. Welcome everybody. For those who may have just joined us, you are in the second workshop of the Fall 2025 Expanded Learning Academy. We are going to be shining a light on quality expanded learning, celebrating and communicating impact. And our people today, so our agenda will be a little bit like this. We've already done our welcome. Starting in just a little bit, we'll be doing our workshop with Nat, Malia, and Leslye from the CAN team. Around 11:25, we'll do some closing comments, and then around 11:35, we're gonna have some interacting breakout sessions. So y'all are gonna be able to talk and get to know each other a little bit and really build some community and talk about how we're doing the work and how we're gonna communicate and tell that story, right? And then afterwards, we will close the Zoom at noon and hopefully we will send you on your way. You will have a great day. And then Melissa will send us an email telling us when all of the stuff is updated up on the website. Usually she gets that done within 24 hours. Thank you so much, Melissa. Um, so, as a reminder, this is a shared learning space. So we hold our workshops as shared and learning collaborative spaces and often update materials with content and resources lifted throughout the presentation. So that's why we've sent a draft for you, and then we'll have the updated ones later on our website. A learning guide and resources Google Doc has been shared that all participants can access. You just have to make your own copy. It will force copy and include space for participants to take notes. This is for security because our chats can't be downloaded, just to keep things private and preserve everybody's confidentiality. Like I said, a PDF presentation is linked in the learning guide for reference, but that again will be updated after the workshop and added to our website within 24 hours. So if there is anything, all right, moving on. So in case you weren't here on Tuesday, we had an amazing workshop with Heather and Iqbal and Jen and Michael and Tang and Lindsay, all about the nuts and bolts of expanded learning. So if you missed it, it is up on the website. You can go ahead and check it out. Lots of really great information, especially if you're new to the field or if you just need a good reminder. So again, thank you all to our fabulous presenters on Tuesday. All right. In case you have not signed up for our next two workshops on September 30th and October 1st, we would love for you to join us. Hopefully you're getting as much out of this as we are enjoying putting all of these things together for you all. So please make sure you sign up. You can put the link in the chat. I believe Vanessa will probably be doing that shortly. And then you can also scan the QR code. And without further ado, let us get to today's amazing participant and our hosts for today. So we were going to be shining a light on equality expanded learning. We've got Leslye Lugo, a senior specialist here at CAN with policy and outreach. We've got Nat Rosales, who's one of our specialists for policy and outreach. And we have Malia Villarreal, a senior specialist for policy and outreach. And I will let you three wonderful, fabulous humans take it away.
All right. Thank you, CJ. Hi, everyone. Malia Villarreal with California After School Network. Excited to get us started for today. So today's session is meant to be interactive. So in the learning guide, we put a lot of resources in there for you all. We put some templates in there. And we also put in some questions for you all to kind of think through when we think about communicating your impact. And today we're really going to be going over the what, why, and how when it comes to communicating impact. We really hope to see you all interacting in the chat, right? So we're here to share with you the knowledge that we have and some of the resources we have. We have an amazing spotlight speaker from the field, Mike Taylor, that will be coming on a little bit later today. But we really hope to see if you all have any resources, if you have any promising practices, like please share that in the chat and definitely join us in the breakout rooms where we can continue to all learn together. Right. So to get us started, we're going to do a little bit of like communications 101 just to kind of ground us in what communications really is. So we'll go to the next slide. And so what we're what we want to do is ask you all this question. What comes to mind when you think about communications? Right? So there's a lot of things that may come to mind when it comes to communications, but we have a Mentimeter for you all today. And so we're hoping that you can scan this QR code. And if you're not able to scan it, that's okay. You can also drop it in the chat. But if you scan the QR code, you should use the code that's here on the screen. And if you can just type in what comes to mind when you think about communications, and it should start to populate on the screen for us. And just curious what comes up for the group, right? What are we all thinking as a group when it comes to communications? What comes to mind? We'll give you all a few moments. Social media, absolutely. Hard, yes. Positive, honesty, negative, yep. Transparency, two-sided, positive, active listening, body language, absolutely. Listening, connection, information, talking, collaboration, active listening, consistency. Oh, yeah. Useful. There's so much that's coming through. Clarity, talking, teamwork, body language. So you can really start to see, right, with this Mentimeter, there is a plethora, right, of things that will come to mind when it comes to communications. Human improvement, facial expressions, concise growth, right? There's so much. So if you could just take a moment to really sit with this Mentimeter for a second, right? Communications, sometimes we think, oh, that is a department, right, that does communications, or that is a person that does communications. But really, right, as we can see here, communications is everything. And we'll get into this on the next slide too, is it's everything that we do and it's everything that we don't do, right? It is so much. It is verbal. There's different mediums, right? It's so important. It can be negative. It is so impactful, right? And I just want to say for viewers too, who are going to be viewing this later on the recording, we're going to take a snapshot of this. We'll add it to the slide deck later when it's shared out. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll jump a little bit more into communications. Thanks for sharing all. So, like I said, everything we do and don't do is communicating something, right? So, if your feeds are anything like mine, right, we are constantly being bombarded by communications and branded messages, right? So, you might have something cute and funny like this Beanie Baby dancing, right? But then you might be getting constant updates of like, what's the new federal update, right? You know, we had the scare with 21st Century. Good thing was that it was released, right? We heard about the dismantling of Department of Education. We had this really cool Gap ad that came out, right? So there's highs and lows. And I'm going to ask you in the chat to guess. If you had to guess how many branded messages we get every single day, what would you guess? Drop it in the chat for me. What would you guess? Every day, how many messages are we dealing with every single day? 4,000, 100, 150, 1,000, hundreds, 400, 1,000, hundreds, 852, right? Yeah, 10,000. Oh, it's so much. So what we're told is 10,000 every day. And it's probably more now. So just sit with that, right? One too many. Yeah, Melissa, 10,000 branded messages a day. That is so much, right? And it's not, it's, the range is so high, right? It could be a cute, dancing stuffed animal to things that can be really scary and a lot, right? And so when we think about for ourselves as a field, right, when it comes to communicating, we got to really think about it's everything we do and we don't do. So as a team, you could think about is like who is actually able to communicate what it is that you actually do at your program, right? I don't know about you all. My family and friends don't really know what I do. It's so hard, right, for them to understand. And like as a field, we can't even decide if after school is like hyphenated, right? One word, two words. It's something I always like to joke about. And so the more that we can get a little bit more clear on that, we can pay attention to it, the more that we're concise across the board within our own teams and as a field, the more impact we can have, right? Especially during these times. And the more we can try to cut through the noise of all these 10,000 branded messages. All right, so we can go to the next slide. And I'll pass it over to Nat to go a little bit into the history of CAN strategic communications.
Awesome. Thank you, Malia. Hey everybody, I am Nat Rosales, specialist for policy and outreach with the CAN team. As Leslie, Malia, and I were, yes, that was correct. That was the three people. Leslie, Malia, and I were working on this workshop. We were realizing that, we've had so many ELOP, EXL academies, but we've never really had a communication strategy specific workshop. So the field might not actually know like the breadth and depth of the work that CAN does in the realm of communications. So, like Malia was mentioning earlier, folks usually think of like communications as a department or like as one action that's done to communicate impact. But in reality, it's like all the things, right? Everything we do, everything we don't do is communicating something. So all these Bitmojis at the bottom are the policy and outreach team at CAN. So we have Heather, Melissa, Malia, Leslie, Vanessa, myself, and Alita. Um, and, our team has grown over the years. So I'm going to give us a little bit of a history of how CAN Strategic Communications has grown from 2020, which is when I started on the CAN team, to the present day. All right, and bear with me because I'm on the ones and twos and the threes and fours. So I have like 7,000 screens open. So this is a little bit of an overview of like the breadth and depth of the policy and outreach work at CAN. Um, Communication fits into all of these buckets, right? Whether that's events, newsletters, website, strategy, strategic outreach, branding, e-blasts, social media, storytelling, strategic design, graphic design, and policy. And as I was creating this, I was like, this is probably like not the full list of all the things, right? These are like the bigger buckets of the work that we do. Um, but really emphasizing that communications can be as simple or as complex as you would like it to be, like what you have capacity for and like what the main result you want from what you're communicating. So for us at CAN, the foundation of all of our communications work is the four values at the bottom: accessibility, equity, belonging, and relevance. Some of the questions that we ask ourselves for all of our communication work is the information we're sharing accessible, whether that's culturally, linguistically, design and visual wise? Is language shifted for different audiences and learning types? Is it being shared in a way that's equitable? Does everybody that needs to have access to the information have access to the information? Are all the people who need to be seen and heard actually being seen and heard? And if they're not, what can we do to make sure that they're actually part of the conversation? And are we doing our due diligence to actually explain the relevancy? Are we making sure that, why this is important for our audience is being properly articulated? And if not, what are some things that we can CQI to make sure that we're doing that? So those are just some of the questions that we ask ourselves. And I'm a ruminator, so I'm always asking myself these questions like 40 times a day, really. Um, so a little bit of like the actual evolution of the work. When I started with the CAN team in 2020, I was a student assistant. So I kind of just like one of my main duties was social media, but I had never like done this before. I went to school for philosophy, so I had never done any comms things. So it was like fish out of water, right? Trying to figure out like what to do and what it meant for the organization. So over the past 5 years, like I've really worked to make our communications on social media specifically a lot more intentional and really showcase the work that we're doing and the impact that we're having in our communities in a way that's like easily read and like clearly articulates all the things, right? So for example, our first six Instagram posts are just like photos of events. Not saying that those things aren't important, but we've shifted our communications to like give a little bit of the and why, right? So they're more informative, they're more focused on like educating instead of just like showcasing. And that's kind of like the way that we're hoping to view communications, or I'm trying to view social media, honestly, moving forward is like really educating folks on what matters, why it matters, and why they should think it's important. And then that's also shown in the way that like the amount of social media posts we've had has shifted. So when I started on the team, it was very much like quantity over quality in terms of like sharing all the things all the time, whether it was stuff we created or stuff that was being shared like throughout the larger field, like a plethora of resources. But in 2020 and like beyond, having all of that information overloaded, like Malia was saying, is completely overwhelming, right? So we realized that we were like saying things into the abyss and nobody was really listening. So we had to take some time to figure out, okay, what are we actually trying to say with the things that we're sharing with folks? So now there's a much more intentional strategy on like making sure folks know why the stuff we're sharing is important. And that shifted to us sharing stuff that's more so created on the can end, like our events, what's happening with our team, how we're growing, the fun stuff we're doing, and how you can join us along on the journey. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like CAN's communications like strategy shift. And sharing that so that you can all take into consideration like what can your communication strategy look like for you. Um, an impactful communication strategy is not one size fits all. So I'm sharing the story of us as a statewide intermediary. That does not mean that our communication strategy is relevant or will apply to you at a programmatic level, right? So think about what makes sense for you and your community. Um, as I showed like 5 years, it's all about like practice. Nothing is perfect ever. You're gonna continue to make mistakes and missteps, and that's okay. That's all part of the process. Figuring out what works and doesn't work is like the beauty of testing out communications. Because even if something doesn't work, you are still able to get your message out there. And once you create something, don't be afraid to tear it down and start over. CQI and reflection is an essential part of communication. And make sure that you give yourself grace. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time around. Malia?
Yeah, thanks, Nat. I just wanted to uplift what Heather, our director, put in the chat was that, right, like we're still working on this, right? It is truly a CQI thing. And because our society, our communities are constantly changing and evolving, right? We live in such a diverse community and society, right? We have to evolve and we have to consistently like CQI. And communications can feel overwhelming, right? We saw that in the Mentimeter of some of the folks put that in there. And so really don't be afraid to get started. It doesn't need to be perfect. And there can be a lot of intentionality of like looking at what works and reflecting and CQIing and changing along the way. And for those who, thank you, Heather, for putting in the chat. For those who may not know what CQI is, continuous quality improvement, or just constantly trying to tweak and improve, right, as you go. And so because we're sharing what we do, right? We're hoping that you could take a few things here or there, but do what works for you and your team. You don't need to feel overwhelmed, right? Where that's where that assessment needs to come in is like, what can we do within our like level of like capacity now? And then where can we hope to grow, 6 months, a year, a couple years from now? And that's absolutely fine. And how do you leverage your resources, the partnerships, right? Like I always say, like we're in this together as a field and you're not alone. So just also keep that in mind when it comes to strategy and planning and communications, right? It's like you're really not alone and you don't have to do this alone.
Very, very true. You are not alone and you don't have to do it alone. And whether that's getting information from the folks around you or like reaching out to us, like I am always down to strategize and brainstorm and do all the things. So if you're like, nah, I don't know why you're asking us to do all this stuff, quite literally, like reach out to me. Like I'm happy to help because then I'm also learning like what's happening in your community. And then can take that information back and we can figure out, all the things like what's some intentional outreach we can do. So don't ever feel bad for reaching out or asking for help, especially when it's something that's like not typically in your wheelhouse. So that's a little bit about the what. And now we're turning over to the why of determining audience. And I feel like determining audience is like, aside from like the content that's being shared, it's like the most important part of like the planning process for communications. So determining your audience, make sure you're talking to people, not at them, which is kind of like the difference between like the quantity versus quality approach, right? Like with the quantity, a lot of it is just talking at people and seeing what sticks, as opposed to talking to them. You're taking into consideration what they might be taking from it, like their perspective, their lived experience, to make sure that the messaging that you're sharing is actually relevant to them so that they can actually, absorb the information and it's not like in one ear and out the other. So here's a little example of what I'm talking about. So without thinking about the audience, like this is like comms for like a school fundraiser. It would be something like join our school fundraiser on Friday at 6 p.m. Like there's nothing wrong with that messaging, but it's not targeted, right? So it might not be relevant to everybody that needs to know about it. So for example, if you were trying to specifically target parents to have them participate, it would be bring the family this Friday for a fun night at our school fundraiser, enjoy games, food, and help support programs your kids love. If you want to make sure that there's more participation at this event, it could be something about making it more appealing to them, right? Don't miss out on our Friday fundraiser, hang out with friends, win prizes, and help make your school even better. So it's the same message, but it's tweaked a little depending on who is hearing it. Because, it's not all one size fits all. It really is dependent on who is listening to the message. And we're going to show like a perfect example of like tweaking data for who is actually reading and looking at the messaging. But this is just like an example of like how quick changes can make it so that it's actually relevant to the folks that you want to hear the information that you're trying to share.
Yeah, and I'll add to what Nat was saying is one of the biggest things that we see when people want feedback, right, on maybe something they wrote up is, and it's because we kind of live in this world, I think, more on a daily basis, is that most people write things from their own perspective. And the perspective we're looking at is this accessible to this audience, right? Why should they care? They have 10,000 branded messages. Why should they care? And in education, right, we tend to use a lot of words. We send lengthy like newsletters or emails because we have, right, like we have this skill set to really use a lot of jargon and a lot of words, which is beautiful. And most people don't want to read that. Most people don't care, right? And yes, they should care. We know that they should care, but the language we use a lot of times in education just isn't accessible, right? It just really isn't. And people don't care. And so, really, it is the onus on us to make sure to think like, okay, if I put myself in those shoes, and how do I make sure this is accessible and how do I make sure that they actually care, right? Using bolds when you need to. And so, just taking the pause in the moment, just for a moment to think like, are they actually going to read this? They have so many emails, so many social media notifications, so many text messages. If yours is like mine, you might have 50 notifications on text message alone. I know it's not, I'm not proud of it, but it's true, right? Melissa in the chat, thank you. The jargon and acronyms, I am guilty of this too. All these things really matter and can make the difference of someone actually attending your event, actually absorbing the resources, your family actually engaging with your programs. It could be your principal really understanding what your program is doing. It could be your board of directors really understanding the impact of your expanded learning program. It could be your elected officials really understanding the impact, right? And so on and so forth.
Yeah, and also like testing out language for determining audience is also like a really great opportunity to like nerd out on A/B testing for messaging, because that's something I'm trying to do right now, which is like quite literally like tweaking stuff a little bit to see what gets more engagement or what gets more folks actually like interacting with the stuff that you're sharing with them. So yeah, like don't be afraid to like test out all the things, experiment because you never really know like what your audience thinks is the most relevant or like will relate to the most until you try a whole bunch of different things. And with that, I will pass it over to Leslye.
Thanks so much, Nat and Malia. All right. And so now we have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about, figuring out who is your audience, right? And something that we know that we do really well in our fields, right, is building relationships. And so we're going to talk a little bit about who are these folks that you want to be connected to. So we have a Padlet here, and I want to invite all of you to participate. Scan the QR code. Vanessa also just dropped in the link in the chat. And then go on there and then just take a moment. Think about who needs to hear about your programs. Who is the person that you've been trying to engage, who you've been trying to make sure that they have a better understanding of the programs you're running? Who is it that you're trying to target? So go ahead and get in the Padlet, and then feel free to add who some of that audience would be. Great. I see folks have put in parents, right? Parents is a large audience, elected officials, families, district administrators, classroom teachers. Yeah. A lot of times programs are running during, a lot of times programs are running on school campus, right? And yet there's still a lot of silos that happen. And so it is really important to be able to engage other folks and really showcase the work that's happening after school. Yeah. School administrators, superintendents, other stakeholders, community leaders, the school board. Maybe it's other programs that you want to share some of the impact that's happening. Yeah, definitely. These are great. Site secretaries, maybe you want to have some special access to the printer. Your site secretary, right? That is definitely someone you want to engage to see the impact, right? Definitely all of these folks, right? Thank you so much for participating in that. So some other opportunities, right, to be able to communicate your impact. Nat talked about some strategies, right? There's also many opportunities that already happen within your program. So you can just sort of amplify your message, having taking advantage, right, of some of things that already happen in your program. So some opportunities are Lights On After School, right? Lights On After School happens every year. A lot of programs do really great, innovative things to celebrate the impact of after school program, right? Why not invite the site secretary? Why not invite your families? There's lots of program-led events like carnivals and festivals that you might already hold for your students. Different celebrations that happen throughout the year that you already have, right? These are all opportunities to engage your community and the specific people that you've thought about, that you've been wanting to engage. This is actually something that doesn't take too much thought, right? You can choose to have maybe a one-pager that has additional information, right? Or you can just invite them and then have young people, right, walk around with folks and show them, this is what program is. This is why it's important to me. These are all opportunities, right? Back to school nights. Usually we're there anyways, right? So what a great opportunity to sort of get engaged more and see how you can maybe support school day with back to school, and then also get to share about the impact that happens after school, right? PTSA meetings, right? You can definitely find ways to invite yourself. Definitely a fan of inviting yourself to different things, right? And that's a lot of times what's needed. And sometimes just going to one meeting, right, can make an impact. Board meetings, community events. There's the California After School and Summer Challenge that CalSAT CalSAC hosts, right? These are all things that you can tap into so that you can share more of the impact that happens during your programs. In the California After School and Summer Challenge, what we like to say is that's a really great opportunity to be able to take students on a field trip, right? Especially if in your program you do some civic engagement clubs, that would be a great culminating experience for your students, right? And you can invite your families to be able to see what is happening. Your students got to learn about all kinds of skills, right, that they can use on once they are eligible to vote, right? And their parents get to also see that. And you get to take wonderful pictures and turn them into great social media posts, right? Or turn them into one-pagers like Nat was talking about. And also what we like to say is honestly, any day during program, like all sorts of great things are happening. So why not just extend the invite to someone that you've been wanting to build that relationship with and have them come and see the great work that's happening, right? Can I get the next slide, please? All right, and we're gonna show different ways, right? What's the how? Showing different ways to share the same data. So I'm going to give a little bit of background context for the RESC. The RESC is the Research and Evaluation Strategy Committee. That's why we call it the RESC, because that is a long name. And last year, the 2024 RESC committee, they came together and they tried to identify, right, how could we leverage existing data in the state to demonstrate the scope and the impact of California's expanded learning opportunities programs. And so in collaboration with CDE, some of the work that was created from one of the work groups was the data snacks. Can I see the next slide? Thank you. And this is how they were born. Some of you have seen some of the data snacks. Some of you all have participated and offered great information that then Nat has gone and created into a beautiful one-pager showcasing the work that's happening and what the impact of ELOP was in your community. So this was the charge, right? So the local data meta-analysis work group from the RESC was to collect existing data on the impact of ELOP. And so they determined who needed to hear these stories, right? They decided community leaders and legislators. And so the result was having a bite-sized bit of information on ELOP that could fit in your pocket of your shirt and be pulled out at any moment. So that literally was the brainstorm, right? That happened during this work group. And Mike, who will be speaking shortly, was part of that group that went and created this idea. And so this is the example. So it was very clear, wanted to collect the existing data that uplifted the impact of ELOP in the fields, right? Have it be one page so that you could just like fold it up and take it out of your pocket, right? And then share in a way that engages the specific reader, which we talked about, right? The legislators and the community leaders. And then this was the result, right? So the collection of some of the quantitative data as well as the qualitative data that then went and became the ELOP data snacks. Do you want to say more, Nat?
Yeah, I can add a bit. Yeah, data stacks have been a really amazing way to like tangibly see like the impact. Like we know ELOP has impact and we know how much of a difference it's made to our students, families, and communities. But we've never, this is something expanded learning does. Like, we're never really the best at hyping up our work or like really talking about like what an amazing job we're doing. We kind of just like sit in the shadows and like do the work that needs to be done, right? So this is like a really great opportunity. This has been a really great opportunity to really like highlight some of the amazing work that's being done in particular parts throughout the state. Right now, there are 9 out of the 11 regions completed for this very first round of data snacks, and those can be accessed on our website. With the link that Vanessa dropped in the chat, you're able to download, share those, do whatever you need with them, because it's all of our work, really. And we should really like, celebrate and share all of that work throughout the whole state. Uh, this also really emphasized that like data snacks couldn't be a one-time thing, right? There is so much data that hasn't been collected that we now are creating strategies and like processes on how to collect, so that we can continue to like showcase the impact that's happening throughout the state and like start to have more specific types of data that we want to share. Now that we've had like, the first round where we kind of just like gathered all the things and synthesized all the things, now we can actually like be like, no, we want specific data on older youth, or we want specific data on comprehensive programs. Um, we can now do all the things. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's it. For this, I think after Leslye, if you don't have anything to add, I think we can pass it to Mike now. Oops, sorry, on the ones and twos, threes and fours. Alrighty. Um, so passing it over to our amazing field spotlight, Mike Taylor from San Rafael City Schools, who has 21 years in the education ecosystem, and is from Region 4. So we wanted to share the Region 4 data snack to emphasize how we grabbed the data, basically literally the same data that Mike used, and we created our version. And then we're going to see the really amazing, like very beautiful way that he gathered all that data initially to really showcase the impact in his community. So take it away, Mike.
Hey, thanks, Nat. Hi, everyone. This is awesome. Get to see everyone here and see all the chat stuff happening. It's like super exciting. Thanks for having me here. This was absolutely a treat to be able to do and to be able to share some ideas and thoughts and some hot tips here in a minute. So yeah, I'm Mike Taylor. I live and work in San Rafael. I work for San Rafael City Schools. I'm the ELOP coordinator. Uh, I did the math. This is my 21st year, my 21st first day of school, which is pretty exciting. I think other than this, I worked at a sandwich shop for like 6 weeks and then I quit to go work in a school. So anyways, pretty focused on education. I've been a teacher, I've been a principal, and then I went from being a principal into this role in expanded learning, which has been super exciting and led to just loads and loads of questions, both from me to folks like the wonderful CAN team, but then also people coming to me and saying, well, who's there? How many kids? What do they do? And I realized like I needed something to use to share and to like show these stories that are happening every single day in our programs that, the bell rang, the everyone's gone and our teams are there and our kids are there. And I don't want it to be like a secret on what they do. I want it to be known. And so I started basically just cruising around with my camera and taking pictures and talking to kids. And if you've ever met me, I like to talk, so that comes pretty easily. Talking to kids, talking to staff, talking to any family member at pickup, like, hey, how are you doing today? And taking note of these little snacks, dare I say, these little tidbits, and started to collect them and then started to put them into documents. And anyways, I did all that work and then I realized like there's a better way to kind of go about this. And so I started zeroing in on like, why would I even want to tell this in the first place? Can I go to the next slide? Do I do that? Yeah. Ooh, thanks. Not on the ones and twos. So I started thinking like, okay, which direction is this document gonna face? Like who are the people I want to see this and interact with this? And at the time, I wasn't sure what I was going to build. whether it was going to be digital or it was going to be a physical thing or what. And I realized I really wanted to get this out to kind of like the broader audience. Like we have county supervisors, we've got the mayor, we've got our board officials, we've got the folks in the legislative world in Sacramento. And I was like, you know what? I want to get this out to these people and show them as they're thinking about legislative changes and language and this and that, like, hey, here's what happens in San Rafael. Like, here are these kids, here's what they're doing. And so I really zoomed in on that. And I also think there's a place for this to go to our families, right? There's a different version of what I'll show you that I think goes to families. I think there's a different version that goes to teachers. And somebody mentioned office coordinators. Yes, I'll add in custodians because if the custodial team and the maintenance team at a school can understand and see and be a part of what you're doing after school, particularly if it's messy or dirty or just anything, you have a good partner in crime. If you can get their cell phone number, even better. So I'll just add that in there. And I think this one, I had this document, I shared it with my food services team who provides us with our supper meal. And he was thrilled to see what the kids actually do also. So anyways, kind of picking like the direction that helped me figure out like why I should tell this story. For me, this story with these the data stories, these data snacks were all about the connections that I had with that sort of like breadth that lives in a school district, right? So I've got my partners, we have our district board folks, I've got my director and executive director, our soup. But then also like I want to connect with the staff who's with the 20 kids. And I want to connect with that kid who's always doing the one thing. In fact, I was at a site yesterday. Gathering data to share with our board, which is kind of ironic, but this is what we do. So pulling all this data to share with our board, and a kid walked up to me and said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And I was like, "Remind me of your name." So she told me, and I said, "How do you remember me?" She goes, "You're the guy with the camera. You were showing us a pic. You were taking pictures for us last year." I said, "I was," and I could show her like, "Here's what happened." And sort of like how that extended. So they'll remember you. If they don't remember you already, they'll start remembering you when you walk around with the camera. So those connections really are crucial. And then you can, again, ask that student, how's your day going? What's the best part of your day? Are there any challenges? How many friends do you have here? What are the adults not doing? That's like my favorite question to ask kids. So yeah, that connection helps kind of get you in it gets you in the door, especially with kids, especially with adults too. Just being consistent and being there and proving that to that person or that student, you have something important to share, and I want to capture that and do with that justice. I think another big reason for why I wanted to do this work and why I think this is so important for all of us to do, everyone on the chat, everyone on this call, is this phrase keeps coming up, after school is not an afterthought. And I'll admit, when I was a school principal and I left, I stopped thinking about my school for like a minute. And now my big push to all of our principals and school leaders is there's a lot going on after school. Here's what's happening, right? We are not an afterthought after school, and to keep expanded learning in conversation by showcasing what we do to uplift the little moments to the big moments. Like right now, my board's about to get like a big moment. Here are the kids and the this and then that. But also, here's a few quotes from some kids. Here's this student. They're doing this project. They're working on this science experiment. They just built this Lego bridge. Here's why they built this Lego bridge. So trying to make sure it's yes, there's numbers and everyone loves these numbers. And this is what Reese just did in TK. Reese is my son. He's in TK Tiger Club over there after school. Yeah, he's a little sweet pie. So, and again, like uplifting and focusing on like a particular side of things. What I found to be valuable, and this is like your mileage may vary kind of a thing, is I found I had a better story to tell when I was really focused. I want to focus on our partners. So and there's a link to this also, but in this expanded learning version issue 2, there's like shout outs to partners, right? So what are our partners in San Rafael doing? Because partnerships in San Rafael are really big. And I wanted to uplift those folks from our, youth and arts mural team to BACR, YMCA, City of San Rafael, all the folks who work with our kids. So that was kind of my focus. I would say I also have a focus on student voice in here. Also, maybe it's not that focused. This is learning for next year to be more focused. But there's sort of there's like student focus, some staff focus, and then partner focus. So I guess it's not focused at all. Take back everything I said. Deleting this slide. No. That just goes to that like CQI process, right? This is an evolution. And I would say too, if I wanted to give this to my partners and say, here's the work you did, I might take that student voice side out and I might just uplift what the partner's role was. Um, and if I just wanted to show this to teachers, I might take that partnership side out and add in more student voice. So you sort of like collect all these things and you can piece them together. With a big asterisk, like if you have time for all this. So we'll get to that. The last thing I would say about like why telling stories of impact is a key is every day something interesting happens that I believe 100% that every single day I could walk to any single program and I could find a little nugget of something cool that's exciting, that's engaging, that speaks to quality, whether that's from a staff member talking with a student, getting down real low to their eye level, to the homework power hour, to this recycling team over here. There's always something. I think just being open to seeing that and staying in a really curious mindset will add to your like library from which you can choose to make your own snack or your own entree, if you will, a picnic basket, sticking with the food theme. And I can also share, if we go to the next slide, a little bit like how I went about this process. The young woman here on the right side of the screen, her name's Diana. And I wrote this article about her for a few reasons. One, her story was just amazing. She was an intern as a junior during summer. Then she interned again during the school year as a senior in high school. Um, she went to our after school programs. She went to San Pedro Elementary School in Davidson, if you're familiar with San Rafael. So she went to the schools as a student and went to the after school programs as a student. She was a part of our high school's Educator Academy, which is a early phase kind of like workforce pathway that we've chiseled out. And her point of view is really interesting. Not just like all of what she had done, but even just her saying, I want to try this out because I think I like working with kids, but I'm not sure. And I don't want to dive fully into it. So she dipped her toe and maybe she's up to her knee at this point. And I believe she's in a nursing program at our local community college. So she works with us one day a week now, just on Fridays. As a high school graduate, getting her units, passed her IA exam. I don't know who's on this call, but she's good. She checks out. Um, so anyways, I wanted to make sure like we had that component also, like the really, really human side of things. So anyway, sorry, going to the how. I really wanted to go, I'm trying to focus on like the hyper local. So she's at Venetia Valley. I wanted to really dive into Venetia Valley with Diana. They have a Winter Wonderland spread, full page spread and article in there with her too. Um, and just showcase what's happening at that school. It's one of our largest schools, one of our largest programs. I felt like that'd be a really great thing to showcase. And then again, that how do I do this or how might you do this? That's probably a better way to put it, is that personal connections. Like with Diana, I had spoken to her high school class about opportunities. Then I saw her again in the summer. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Here you are. And then I saw her again the next school year. Then I saw her again the next summer. And so just building that connection and keeping those names and then sending people these pictures helps too. Um, the So images and words, kind of finding a balance there. The students who would grab me, can you take a picture of this? Can you take a picture? Absolutely. Are you making our yearbook for us? Definitely not making a yearbook. I really believe there's a balance between I'm just taking pictures and I'm going to just splatter them everywhere. And these pictures are edited, collated, uh, ripped apart, torn apart, cut in half, zoomed in, zoomed out, to the point where like it's hard for me to like look around and not see how I'd want to edit a photo, but I'm also a photographer on the side, so this is like my gift and my curse. Um, and so thinking through that, I didn't want 500 images just popped in there. I wanted like 25 really, really beautiful, but also images that made sense. I'm gonna do this. This isn't the best practice for a Zoom, but I love physical things. So I'm gonna do this. So like this is a full page spread and it goes across really strategically. And I took it just as such. I wanted the little kid on the side and I wanted space for words at the top and text at the bottom. And if you're not there yet, we can get you there in just 5 easy, no, just kidding. Just start thinking through that, right? The blue sky is a beautiful background. And if you are taking a picture and you're zooming in a kid's face, that's awesome. And if you stepped back and looked up and you have a big blue sky, just think of all the stories you could write in that big blue sky. Same thing with blacktop. That works out great too. Up, down. Anyways, we'll get to that in the tips section. But I do think there's kind of a balance. I didn't want nothing but language. I wanted words. I wanted pictures. And I wanted the pictures to stop people. 10,000 branded messages a day. My wife's in marketing, so we can lovingly blame her a little bit, but it's her birthday, so we won't too much. But 10,000 is a lot. And so getting folks to pause and like ask, like, what's this, right? Why is this person showing me this? And I guess I'll read one thing, right? Like, who's going to throw that away? Come on. That's the whole thing is I wanted somebody to stop and think, okay, what's going on here? What is this? There's also some weight to it. So I don't know if that's in the how section, but like nice paper, a little weight to it. Focus, definitely zeroing in on like what you're trying to do and not trying to do everything, which goes to the like, don't print out 4,000 pictures. Really try and zero in. I'm a believer in less images is more. And I think that the image can't stand on its own. Again, 10,000 messages. I think that an image with a story is way more impactful than a picture, right? Like if you just saw that picture of Diana, you'd be like, great, what a lovely image. It's in focus. There she is. It's the story that makes you go back to that image. And it's the story that makes you go to the next one and go, oh my gosh, she's really good with kids. Like she's phenomenal with kids. But seeing her interact with that group of kids, I think there's like a picture of her with a little group. And she's so focused and intent on that group of kids. They have to work together. I added this at the very last minute, Nat, unthrowawayable. So I wanted this document to be something where if somebody put it in the recycling bin, the next person would walk by and go, hey, who threw this away? Can't throw this away. So unthrowawayable, which is technical term. And then just real quick too about how the first version of this I made was digital. And it was like, I wanted to just get it out. I wanted numbers. It was great. And then I started printing them. And I really have become a firm believer in print. I have right here the pictures to edit for this summer's impact report. Went from this stack to this stack, thanks to the help of my colleague America. She's a ruthless editor, and if you could get yourself a ruthless editor, that's perfect. But having a physical document is great. I printed these at Staples, and I printed the drafts on my district office copy machine. So anyways, cheap prints, get it started. Kinko's, Staples, if you're really interested in making this like a something like really high quality. Actually, this is pretty high quality from Staples too. But there's Blurb and Canva, and they both have a way to print what you're doing. I love Blurb. I don't work for Blurb, not an ad. I love Blurb because you can drop in images onto the actual book and then it prints out and just gets mailed to you. So you don't have to go to Staples 9 times and talk to them. Also, it has a feature where you can do like a full page and you don't have to like articulate the pages and have it like turn 90 degrees and stuff. So the next version I do, I'm going to print it on blurb. It's a little bit more expensive, but I'm also going to try and stay more focused on who it's to, how many I'm printing, and like which direction it's facing. That's just that's my hot tip. I'm not even on my tip slide yet, but that's next. Can I go to the next slide? Thanks. Okay, 10 tips. It might be more. We'll see. Again, photographer, I walk around with the camera basically every day. It's almost always in my backpack. Take nice pictures. Any camera you pick up that was made after 2014 is perfect. This, my phone, with all my kids' stickers on the back, is a fantastic camera. Use whatever you have. Don't be afraid to take pictures. Don't be afraid to try, but start with nice pictures and really like, play around, practice. I love taking pictures of kids' hands as they're working and like backs of heads, which is just fewer parents to reach out to figure out if they have their permission slip for their image. So just keep that in mind too. Um, Before starting with nice pictures, I should have said just start. Um, this was a lot of work, but I just kind of started the process. I had the pictures, I had the stories, I just started writing things down. Uh, Again, I'm very like tactile, so I have like sticky notes for what I might want to do on the first page, the last page. I know I wanted a person walking away on the last page, so I got Omar walking away on the last page. I know I wanted a big, adorable kindergartner in a chef's outfit on the first. So I wanted like a showstopper and an ender. So, but I just had to start. Maybe that's like 3 tips in one, like start, start, and start. Don't be afraid to start because pretty soon it's going to be December. And if you want to showcase summer, like it gets a little long in the tooth. Um, and I can say that for myself because I got this out in like April. So, um, edit. I would pare down your pictures. When you feel like you have enough pictures, take a day off, come back, and then I would take out like 4 pictures and really start to tighten up what story you're trying to tell and how you want to do that. And if that picture actually matters, and if it does, great, keep it in. Um, there's also this level of when you're editing, I'm skipping around. I'm going to sequencing. Okay, I'm going to not skip. Stay focused. Um, with editing, I think actually comes story and voice. So what are the pictures? What's the story? And making sure they're synced up. And that takes practice. And I think it takes feedback. So if you can find your person who's going to be really honest and a great collaborator with you and say, like, I don't get it. My wife's phenomenal at that. Why is this connected? And America, my colleague who was a co-assist or the assistant coordinator at Bahia Vista, phenomenal. Like, no, Mike, this picture is not good enough. I'm like, oh, amazing. So get that person to help you hone in your story and hone in your voice. Otherwise, you're just going to be all over the place. So get that really, really tight to find that story and find that voice. I'll also add, it takes time to find your story. It can take time to find your voice. So just practice, write stuff down. I use my voice recorder on my phone to like say what I think I want to say. And then hot tip number 11, bonus tip, you can get the transcript and use that to start writing. So that's been a massive game changer also. Thinking about sequencing the images, some pictures look this way and some pictures look this way. So just make sure you've got them on the right page. So like you don't have a child looking off the page. You kind of want everything going towards the center more or less. Definitely gathering help, getting those editors, getting those partners in crime is huge. And then um, this is my thought, and it's my kind of like where I stand. Rather than using social media, which you'll notice Sarah Fell's Expanded Learning has a social media account, which is not used. Um, I am trying to like hold it all and wait until I have this body of work and then boom, blast it out there and put it out there. I feel like little drips and drabs everywhere. It kind of waters down what I'm trying to say and what our story is. And so I'm trying to pull it all together and do one big thing and then bam, splash it down there. So those are my thoughts. Again, your mileage may vary, like what works for you, totally specific to your community and your needs and your audience, and the time you have to do it, because it can be tricky. And then just link down there, I put the first impact report I did, which was just digital, and then the second one, which I printed, but I turned it into digital here for you. There's loads of intention in there around like what came first, what came second, what came last. And if you have more questions, like pop them in the chat and I'll jump over that direction. And then my email is on the slide too, and anyone can you guys can reach out if you have ideas or want to ask questions or pick my brain, or if you have ideas, send them this way too, please. Yeah, thanks everybody. It's fun to share.
Thanks, Mike, for sharing all of your specific examples and your knowledge and your journey. You're seeing all of the kudos, right? Yeah, a lot in the chat. So many nuggets. I know I was taking notes from you too, Mike. So thank you for sharing. There was so many relatable moments that you were sharing, right? Of like just getting started and like, right, the idea of like it doesn't need to be perfect and getting the partners in crime, right? I don't know about you all, but I need to have my partners in crime because you can look at something over and over again, or you have an idea and you can get stuck, right? And we threw a lot of information at you and it can feel overwhelming. Y'all are doing so much at program and it can be like, I don't have time for this, or I don't know where to start, right? And so it's really picking a few of them and figuring out where you can get started now, right? And so for the call to action, we threw down a couple of options for you to get started today, tomorrow, or whenever that makes sense for you. And before I get into the call to action, I just wanted to share a little things that were coming to my mind listening to Mike. And that was before coming into the field, I went to school originally for marketing and business. And I always say I wasn't meant to be in this field, but anyone who's gotten into this field, once you're in it, you know why you're in it and you don't leave, right? Because it's so magical and beautiful. Um, and so I remember first interning into the field and coming from business and in a marketing background, and then coming into this field, it was fascinating because I got to see how impactful, right, the world of after school and expanded learning was. Like, I didn't even know what after school meant, right? I was like, what is this internship? But I'm going to do it. It sounds cool. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know what after school is or what that means. And understanding quickly how passionate and talented the workforce was and how humble everyone was, right? And how undervalued really this field was. Um, and I remember just thinking, right, like, I just wish everyone knew how amazing they were and felt empowered to share that with the world, right? And so I hope that today you all know and feel empowered a little bit more and have some more tools in your tool belt to know that this work, how important you are and your staff are, and this work is, and how important it is that we really share, right? How important and impactful it is. Because just like from the jump, whatever we do and don't do communicates something. And people will guess and think what they think about this field, or it can be invisible, right? And we know it's not. And we know expanded learning, right? Sometimes, right? Like Mike said, after school is not an afterthought. We know expanded learning does things that are so important for our communities that it's not just to supplement, it does things better than even the regular day, right? We know that, especially during these times. We need hope, we need the joy, we need the community, we need the connection, all these things that we know, right? And so I just hope that we stay empowered, stay connected. And if you don't have capacity, we know we threw a lot at you, right? It's just getting started, staying connected. You're not alone, right? So we have a couple of options for you to hopefully kind of kickstart or enhance what you're already doing. So we put together this like DIY impact snack Canva template, which is QR coded. Here for you all. So sometimes this can feel limiting, right? So if it doesn't feel right to you, don't feel frustrated. Because I know sometimes if I have a template, but the information I have to share, like my snacky snacks to share, doesn't fit in a template, I get frustrated and then I get stuck. So just want to say that, but if this template works, please use it. It is for you all to use and to share your information. Also on the learning guide, there are questions to consider when crafting your message. So things like your audience, timelines, core message, expanded learning connection, evidence to highlight, call to action. So these specific questions are helpful when you think about crafting your message. So if you do have time with you yourself, your team, to really dive into crafting your own message and maybe developing something much like Mike did with his team, there are some questions there for you on this slide. They're also on the learning guide for you to really dive in and to get started. Also want to recognize that you may not have capacity to do anything right now, and that is understandable, right? We know how busy y'all can be. And so also want to say, if you have stories, if you have data, send them to us. We can't promise that they'll be shared right away or how we'll share them, but we're constantly needing stories, right? We're constantly talking to legislators or the governor's office or needing to share the impact of the field to make sure that people understand what is going on. And so we have a Google form and we'd love to hear from you all. What's going on? And it could be the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? We need to know. We want to know what's going on. We also want to know things like, and you'll see in this Google form, if you want to participate in it, is how many students were participating in your program 5 years ago versus how many students are participating now. Something as simple as that is so impactful, right? Sometimes we overthink it. And sometimes if we can just share with the right audience, hey, let's ground a little bit. Look at where we are today compared to 5 years ago, right? So if any of you know that, drop it in the chat now, right? If you know, and it doesn't have to be perfect, let's not overthink it. If you know now how many students are participating in your program roughly 5 years ago compared to now, drop it if you know, right? Like, let's start owning the impact now. And so again, we have a couple options. We have the Impact Snack Canva template. If you have some information, you just need a little template to get you started. We have, if you want to start crafting your own and starting from scratch, we have some questions for you to consider to really dig in and be intentional. And then if you really don't have the capacity, send it our way. We're happy to take anything that you have. We'll collect it and we'll try to do something with it. And we never know when that information can be shared and needs to be shared. So I will, before we get into the next part of, and before, the end of presentation, feedback forms and things like that, we'll get to breakout session. Nat, Leslye, was there anything else you wanted to add before we close up today?
I think the biggest takeaway is like quite literally like just start, like whatever that looks like, whether it's figuring out how to start building relationships in your school site or if it's like trying to figure out like partners to come, or if you're like at the district level trying to like, advocate for like how important your program is to like the other folks within your district so that, expanded learning isn't an afterthought in those conversations. Just starting is the most important part. And it's okay to trip over your feet because, like once you're at the table, you're at the table. And once you start talking, they'll start listening to you at some point. So don't be afraid to start. And yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to flag the QR code takes you to the data sharing. So like if you have some stories that you want to be highlighted, you can also access it there. I believe Vanessa also put in the link in the chat. And then some of the breakout rooms, like we'll be in different rooms, and we're also happy to sort of hear about what is going on, what you'd like to showcase, what strategies. We're happy to spend some time brainstorming with you all and strategizing. As Mike mentioned, right, sometimes it's super helpful to just have an extra ear, an extra set of eyes, right? Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you all so, so much for all of your wisdom today, Leslye, Nat, Malia, and Mike. We are so thankful to have you all in the field advocating for telling our stories and making sure that the impact is out there, and making sure that we all know how to, communicate that and show all of the amazing work that you all do every day. So thank you so much. Before we start breaking into breakout rooms, we're just going to do a quick couple of housekeeping things. So as a reminder, we are here to support you. Not only do you have everyone here on the CAN team, everybody at the ASAP team, but you also have, most importantly, your system of support. So each of us is in a region. If you need to know who your region leads are, you can go ahead and scan that QR code or click the link. Yeah, so just as a reminder, you are not alone. We are all here, all spread out throughout the state. We want to connect with you, and we want to make sure that you feel like you have all the support you need. Speaking of being connected, you can go ahead and get connected with us. We've got our Facebook, our Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of that great stuff. Nat and the policy and outreach team is super great at making sure that everything is up to date and making sure that all of the things, that information that you all need, is all out there somewhere. Speaking of disseminating information, we have the rest of our expanded learning calendar events for the rest of the year. So we've got fall, we've got 2 more coming up, we've got some in the winter, we got some in the spring. So not only do we have our learning academies, we also have the winter and spring office hours. Come by, hang out, ask us questions. We've got the whole system there. We're here to help. Some friendly reminders, things that are coming up. It is time for expenditure reports, everyone's favorite time of the year, right? So don't forget that they are due September 30th. You got a little bit of time, about half a month left to get those in. So if you need any help or anything of that nature, make sure you're reaching out to your county leads or anybody at the office. Wonderful. Last but not least, we've got our favorite part, CQI, continuous quality improvement. So we need to know what we did great and what we need to do better so that we can better serve you all in the field. So I'm actually going to go ahead and give us about 45 seconds to fill this out together. Go ahead and scan it. If you can't scan it, I believe Vanessa's already dropped it in the chat, because that's just the kind of team we run here. Behind the scenes, pretending like we know how to do everything, So go ahead and take some time to fill out your feedback for us. All right. Yes. Thank you, DJ Nat. On the ones, the twos, the threes, and the fours, they sent a picture of their setup today. They are not kidding. It is intense. So thank you all so much for providing your feedback. Let's get to the good stuff. Our breakout rooms. Who's ready to do some breakout rooms? So we've got 5 rooms for you today. We've got communicating your program impact with Mike. So if you want to go pick Mike's brain a little bit, you're going to go to room 1. In room 2, we've got moving communications from quantity to quality, and that's with Nat. So if you want to hang out with Nat and go pick their brain, go ahead and go on over to room 2. Room 3 is identifying audiences and building connection with Leslye. So if you want to figure out how to go ahead and find your audience and who you want to tell your story to, how to make those connections, Leslie's your girl. In room 3, room 4, crafting messages for decision makers. So if you're one of those people who's got to talk to those people that make all those decisions, you're going to want to go hang out with Heather in room 4. And then last but not least, we've got communicating impact for older youth programs with myself and Malia, because you can't have older youth if I'm not involved, because that's kind of my jam. So yeah, so we've got 5 rooms for you to choose from. They are listed in the chat as well. There are a couple different ways for you to join the breakout rooms. You can use the Zoom control bar at the bottom, and you can click on breakout rooms and you can pick the one you want to go to. You can also rename yourself. If you can't find where that breakout room button is, you can rename yourself with the number that you want to go to, and we can help put you in. Or, maybe text just not your thing, and that's a-okay. We love you just the same. If you can't do either of those things, just hang out and somebody will help get you in the room where you belong. All right. Thank you all so much. As a reminder, the rooms will close at noon. So please self-select, choose your own adventure. Have a great day. And we are so glad that you chose to spend your morning with us on this bright and sunny Thursday morning / almost afternoon.